I'm live again. Okay, guys. So I ended up doing what we used to do back in the 90s when our computers were being difficult with drivers, and I rebooted and everything's working great. I've got audio on GarageBand, I've got audio on YouTube. This is something, so I am asking a single computer to send audio from this microphone, even if I get really close to like totally fuzzes out. Anyway, I'm asking it to do that, and that's a lot to ask. And sometimes your computer gets grumpy. So that's totally what happened. So today I'm live streaming the recording of my episode, as I said, and it is taking care of you 5 ideas to overcome high stress, because I'm seeing a lot of people in high stress. And I thought, well, wait a minute, it's up to us to take care of ourselves, right? So we can do some things to help reduce stress. So what I'm going to do is launch into the episode, and first I'll hit record, and then if I make mistakes, you guys can just totally laugh at me. That's fine. And yeah, it's really interesting. This is great. I'm having like technical day. Okay. You know, if you squish your GarageBand window too far down, the record button goes away. But anyway, if I make mistakes, I will just, you guys will see me make them. I back up, I re-edit, because I don't like to spend hours and hours editing the podcast. I want to get this out today before people are commuting home. So with that, I'm going to record, and I'll try to look at chat from time to time in case you have something to say. And thanks for helping me get my audio taken care of. Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, guys. Today is Monday, March 16th, 2020. This is episode 282 of Living Free in Tennessee. And you may have noticed that I skipped forward an episode from Friday because it was 280 on Friday. There's a reason for that. You may have missed it, but over the weekend on Sunday, as I watched people get more and more scared and watched people talk more and more about empty shelves, I reached out to a direct contact who is an infectious disease specialist, also happens to be dad of Tactical Redneck. He's been doing this for 3 decades and is in a position of responsibility in his state. And I wanted to get his perspective, and he agreed to email me his thoughts. So on Sunday, I released a short episode, 14 minutes, just introducing him and reading that letter and his take on the current situation. He is currently treating patients, by the way. So episode 281, it's very short. It's available for you to listen to both on the website and in your podcatcher. If you subscribe to us via a podcatcher, give it a listen. And if after hearing the episode, because he doesn't go into a lot of detail about the virus or about its impact and those sorts of things, if you have more questions, please email them to me, because if I get enough questions, if I get a question, like 2 or 3 questions, I'll forward them via email. He'll answer me back. Okay. If I get a bunch of questions, I'm going to invite him on the show. It'll be an extra edition, not one of our normal transmissions. And you can hear from somebody who is taking both a cautious approach, because they also don't want to be infected or see their community infected with a lot of these, but a reasoned approach. It's not like the people on the media who are going, we're all going to die. Okay. There has to be a reaction somewhere between, I'm going to go lick the sidewalk to try to get this thing, and we're all going to die. This is the next flu of 2018, the Spanish flu. Somewhere in the middle there is probably what's really going on here. Okay. So how do you email me those? Email them, Nicole, Nicole, at livingfreeintennessee.com. Or, of course, you can always go to my website, livingfreeintennessee.com, and click on the contact form, and that comes to me. Usually I just get a bunch of people talking to me about SEO on that, but occasionally you guys send stuff that way rather than direct email. Okay, so also over the weekend, I had a panic attack. I have not had a panic attack in a long time. And it was like, you know what I'm talking about, the physical kind where you kind of get tight right here in the throat and your heart beats a little bit faster. I was up to 85 beats a minute, just resting heart rate. And that's not my resting heart rate. Yeah, that's a physical reaction to stress. And you see, I am worried. Not just about the reactions in the community. And I'm not really worried that personally, I'm going to die. Like if I do die, then it was my time. And that's my philosophy. Not going out of my way to become infected with the flu or a cold or coronavirus or smallpox or Ebola or strep throat for that matter. Just it's not a thing I do, but I'm worried. And I'm personally worried about how this is going to affect both my personal income for the rest of the year as people navigate staying home for 4 to 8 weeks. And I just missed my uncle's funeral in Oregon. It was yesterday. They were sending me video because I chose not to put myself in the path of both being infected by it in Oregon or being stuck somewhere to or from or whatever, because things are shutting down, right? They just shut all the bars and restaurants there. And I thought that was going to happen, and I was right. And there have been about 14 million expensive things that have broken in the holler in the last 3 weeks. So I'm worried financially. And that causes a lot of stress. And I was having this panic attack. And I live in an area with no outbreak at all, right? There's nobody sick in my county. Of course, they're not really testing, but there's nobody sick in my county. I live deep in a holler where I don't really see anybody except for the people who are already here. So from an exposure standpoint, unlikely, unless I've already had it, that I'm going to be coming across this unless it comes in on a piece of mail or something. So last night, as I could not sleep, I thought to myself, some of y'all are in the Northwest where there's a lot going on. Some of y'all are in states where there's been a lot of very sudden shutdowns. Some of you have lost your jobs. I know people in the restaurant industry who are screwed right now. They're completely screwed. And the thing they passed in Congress to give unemployment probably isn't going to go to them. Okay? Yeah, they're screwed. And I bet you're facing some of the same feelings I am. So today I want to explore 5 ways to overcome high stress. High stress by taking care of yourself. And it can happen in a situation like this. You can have a couple of weeks like one of our listeners just had, where just a lot of family change and, different personal stresses come out, but it all leads to stress. You can have, like Jenny just got her Tennessee massage therapy license, Jenny, who's that like positive person. And then she got another letter that said, oh, that's just the preliminary approval. We're not going to actually meet and talk about it and officially vote yes till May. That means that she's gone through the training for over a year to become a licensed massage therapist. She's passed all the tests. She's preliminarily approved to give people massages and can't go earn money. Can't go earn money till May because the board hasn't met to say, oh, yeah, we agree with this preliminary approval. So I bet she's feeling some of these things too, right? So there are lots of reasons you'd be in stress, not just the current over promotion of the media focusing on all the bad and none of the hope that we have going right now. And here's what happens when we allow ourselves to spiral into a stress reaction. We turn into little beasts. And I'm seeing a lot of little beasts around being beasts to each other. And when this passes, what are you going to remember? You're going to remember the person who brought a box to the lady down the road who has a tendency to get pneumonia and is over 65 because she was told not to leave her house. You're going to remember that person, or are you going to remember the beasts? And when you remember the beasts, are you going to think kindly of them moving forward? Think about that as you navigate your own stress and try not to be the beast. Yeah, when you let stress take over, things just don't work right. I mean, now the other thing is your head does not analyze problems very well, right? If you're like all stressed out and freaked out because your kids are home and you've never had them home before for that much time and don't know what to do with them, and you're not getting any break. Yeah. So I have 5 ways to start addressing the stress because personally, I don't like feeling panic attacks and I don't want stress in my life. And I'm starting to implement some of these here. And I thought I'll share them with you. Guys, as you listen to this, if you have ways you like to work through the stress that you want to share, let me know. I'll share them on the air because I think it's really important that that we get to the point where we do own our emotional response to things. We own that we're taking care of ourselves and we own our lives so that we can prosper and we can opt out of those traps that we build for ourselves, the I can't trap or the I have to trap. Like those two, I have to go to work. Why do you have to go to work? Oh, because you're in debt. You need to earn money. Oh, I see. Okay. So The I have tos and I can'ts need to go out of your life, and you need to make room for the life you wanna live. And you can do that. It's just one step at a time. I also have some announcements. First of all, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we're doing the third in the series of webinars teaching you how to get out and seen online and track how well things are going. This next one is how to run a Facebook ad campaign. In the spirit of empathy and understanding that some of you were not planning to be home. Yeah. And to give you something to look at besides, you know, constant 24-hour, 7-day a week coverage of this situation. I'm going to offer it to free for everybody who hears this and wants to sign up. Um, the the link to sign up is in the show notes, and we will email you a Zoom link once, like probably tomorrow evening, so that on Wednesday you can join the conference. There may be a quiz we have you take just so we know where you're coming from a skills perspective before we start. But you know what? If you're stuck at home and don't know what to watch, why not learn how to run a Facebook ad campaign on Facebook? Because while you're home, if somebody needs help with that, maybe you can make a little money helping them do it. Or maybe you have a small business you want to promote. I don't know. Anyway, waiving the fee for this. And guys who have paid to become members to see these, don't worry. I'm adding a webinar to make up for it. I just thought everybody could use a little bit of a break. Also, we will be doing some extra content during this period if we can. For example, if I do get Dr. Kaler on, it'll be an extra episode, not a standard episode. I'm going to start doing a little bit more video about things we're making and how we are cooking with what we have and other solutions that we're working on as we hang out in the holler, because people are just asking me lots of questions about, my sister called the other day and she said, "Is it just life is normal for you in the holler?" And I said, "Pretty much, except for I have to think, do I want to go to the workout club or not? Because if there's an outbreak there, I don't actually want to come across this thing, stuff like that." So sometimes what seems like normal life to me is a little different when you've gotten used to going to the store once a week or to run for a single item if you need it. And now it's not super feasible to do that. Let me know if there are things you're interested in. Because, I'm going to do some cook with what you have. Like I have a couple of things I need to make that I don't have all the ingredients for. I'm going to talk about what I do to get around that. We're still going to have yummy food here. It's all from scratch, right? But if you have challenges coming up or you're wondering like things you can do with your kids or ways to get into something new at home, hit me up. I'll do what I can to either find somebody to talk about it or I'll talk about it. And then lastly, last week I did a test of live streaming the recording of the podcast on YouTube. This is live streaming right now. In fact, there are a couple people watching, not a ton, but they were really helpful early on. And I just got a suggestion from them about a topic: 5 plants you can use for teepee. I know one that works really well. Comfrey actually wouldn't be bad either. So, yeah, we'll do some stuff like that. But we are live streaming. So I see their chats as I'm talking. Like Kenneth just gave a little chime in there, and it's adding an interesting new dynamic. So we're going to give this a go for about a month and then assess if it makes sense for the show. With that, it is time for our usual segments. And the first one is Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about eating what you store and storing what you eat. And this has been a great time for me to do an overall assessment of how well I organize my pantry towards actually being useful in my life. It started with tornadoes, by the way, and no power. And now we're into this whole quarantine thing where the state is just about to be shut down. It's if it follows the process that have gone down in other states, by the end of the week, I'm pretty sure most everything will be shut here. And that means that having a pantry to pull from is a really great thing. And so I went through this weekend and just looked around and thought, is there anything I wish I had more of? There is one thing, and that is my dairy. I'm not currently storing condensed milk, and I didn't feel like it was responsible for me to go out and buy some when everybody else was trying to bone up on stocks that they have at home, because I have pretty much everything else I need. And I can do without milk in my coffee if I have to. My herd share has not started. If my herd share starts, I'll have milk again. And I have some in the fridge. So, I think overall it is working. And that's actually really nice to know because I think had something like this happened 10 years ago, I would have had enough. I would have been fine. I would have eaten a lot of weird stuff out of there. We are also reorganizing the short and midterm storage. It's part of the pantry series. So on Wednesday, I'm going to talk about our new inventory tracking system that's a much larger explanation or title for it than the complexity that it is, but it's how I'm managing with multiple people accessing my stores, how I'm managing when to reorder and how much. This works fine by myself without anything, but now that multiple people are helping around the farm, like feeding animals, I don't always know when I open a new bag of food because it's not always me opening it, by the way, for the dogs, for example. So reorganizing short and midterm storage to smooth that system out so it's not something that's a big pain in the butt for everybody to manage. Because if you have an inventory tracking system that's hard, nobody will do it. Nobody will do it. Unless you're going through and auditing every day, nobody will do it. So you want something that's easy to fit into your life. And I'll be sharing that on Wednesday. We are getting set up to dry the early spring plants that we use for teas, like blackberry leaves and stinging nettle. And what that means is in my kitchen, as part of the short and long-term storage redo, I need to make a dedicated space for dehydrating the food. And there's two ways I do that. I have an Excalibur that I can set up to dehydrate the leaves, but I find the flavor on tea is much, much, much better if I just dehydrate them at room temperature. And so I hang them or I put them on trays, that sort of thing. What you want to do is make sure it gets dry before it molds. And in Tennessee, that can be a problem with the humidity. Right now, not a problem. I do it in my kitchen because I have a window unit in there. So even in the summer, it's less humid in my kitchen than other places. And then, of course, when that stuff's dry, I toss it in a mason jar with a moisture absorber if I have one. I don't have any right now, and I'm not trying to get any right now. So sometimes I just throw it straight in the mason jar and hope that it works really well. I am harvesting extra mullen right now. So mullen, Mullein, is a plant that grows in disturbed, it'll grow like between two rocks. This is one of those plants that really wants to grow when it grows. And it grows all over the United States. And it's also referred to as cowboy toilet paper, Ken. So that's one of your options. I have some seeds if you need them. And it's also a decongestant. It's helpful for asthma. If you have a cold coming on and you feel a runny nose, teas out of this work really well. Some people smoke it. Some people do a poultice out of it. So I keep a lot of this on hand because I'm prone to chest problems when I get sick, and I have an asthmatic living next door to me. And in general, one of the things that, the first thing to happen when you get sick, if you're not vomiting, is you get scratchy throat. And unfortunately, one of my darn cats got into my mullen, which means I can't use it. So I have a bunch of dried mullen that has now become compost because of the stupid cat, and I have to go harvest more. Luckily, this is a plant you can harvest year-round, okay? Because the floral petals are one thing you can use to make tea, but the leaves work just fine. And here in Tennessee, it does not get buried by snow, so it is all over the place here. In fact, I have a bunch of seeds that David over at Cider Hollow Farm gave me that I'm like in the process of sprinkling about in the holler because it's early spring and I want more of it to grow because it's one of my favorite medicinals. So we're stocking up on that. And then it's that time of year in the pantry. So I have lots of jars of canned stuff because I love the canned stuff, and it's really cool to get stuff that's cheap at the farmer's market that they have too much of, right? And then, you know what you can do? You can can it, and it doesn't cost you as much. In fact, my canned food costs less than grocery store food in most cases, not all cases. My canned beets, for example, they cost me less than buying those in the store. And so for me, it's a budgetary thing. It's also one of the ways I let go of stress or I deal with stress is to can the food. It makes me feel more secure to have it. And I like how it tastes. And I know that the quality of the food I'm getting, because I know what I put in the jar, is going to be higher than what I can usually get at the store. However, then this time of year comes. This time of year, I'm going to start canning, which means I start loading on a shelf that runs the length of my wall above my bedroom room. Okay, so it's like between the ceiling and this shelf, I put the canned goods. That runs the whole length of my house. The bedroom is the coolest room in the house. It's also the one that doesn't freeze. So I start there with my first canned goods, which usually means I have a lot of pickled things in that room. And then I work over into the living room. And then once that's full, I fill up in my mud room / laundry room, which has my additional canned food storage. This time of year, I take it all out of my bedroom and I go into the one in the mud room, which is close to my kitchen. And I make sure everything that's more than 2 years old. So if it's got 2018 on the lid or earlier, I don't have any 17s left anyway. But if I did, I put those in one section of that room. And then the rest of it, I try to fit all of the 2019s in there. Okay. So once that's done, I know to pull from the 2017, 2018 pile. And then I get into the 2019s. And then I'm already starting to refill on the other side of my house. By the time I get through filling up through the living room, I usually am then ready to start filling the mudroom. So it's a whole cycle. But what this means right now is I'm going to be carrying like 200 jars or something. Not really that many, but at probably 150 from one part of the house to the other part of the house. And that's how I keep track of what I'm doing. Before I set the system up, guys, I used to have stuff sit around for 5 years and it wasted. So I hate that. Next segment is what's in season. This is where we talk about what we're finding in the land and what we're growing in our garden. And this just in, people are finding morel mushrooms. Isn't that cool? I think it's cool. However, what's not cool is I've been looking for morel mushrooms for 14 years and never found any. So I'm seeing reports from all over the state of people finding morels. My buddy Carly came over, who's the person who got me started in looking for mushrooms. And I told her and she said, yeah, I know. I've been looking for 10 years, never found one. And we had kind of a chat about that. So maybe this will be the year. I think the more time you spend in the woods, the more likely you are to find them. So if you are a mushroom seeker in Tennessee, start looking. Watercress is back at its peak. It was up at peak, and then it kind of died back when we got all that flooding and those rains. And it would be like flood, freeze, beautiful weather, flood, freeze, beautiful weather. It was kind of doing this cycle. And that made the watercress look really sad. But now it's back. It's at its peak. And I'm taking that as a sign to eat it. Dead nettle is blooming. Bees love it. Humans love it. The way you use that, by the way, pull the leaves off. Don't eat the stems. I mean, you can eat the stems, but they're chewy. So pull the leaves off and just use the leaves. Chickweed is coming on. That's really good in a saute, by the way. And then stinging nettle, it's time to harvest. I'll be going up to that patch at some point this week. That is on my, like, I'm going to make time for it even if I don't have time for it list because I'm almost out of stinging nettle for my tea. Mullen, it's almost always in season. And then poke greens are popping up. And poke is like this giant bush by the end of the summer that has red stalks and it has big leaves and it has berries. And some people mistake it for elderberry. The pattern of the berries are coming off like a stalk with berries all around it. Elderberry is more like a lacy cluster of berries, and they're a totally different size. So once you know the difference between poke and elderberry, it's very clear to see what it is. The reason it's important is poke is poisonous, and elderberries, as long as you don't eat the leaves and stems, are not. And however, you can still eat poke greens. Yeah. So the way you do it is you boil it in salted water, drain it, boil it again, drain it, boil it the third time, and then you can eat it. That may seem like a lot of boiling, but it's pretty good. I do have friends who've eaten it when it's as young as it is right now because it's like maybe an inch tall and not have a problem, but they do recommend boiling it first. That breaks down any toxins in it. Wild garlic is going nuts. In fact, I was driving through the city the other day thinking about empty grocery stores and going, that person right there can make a lot of wild garlic soup if they want to because their lawn was just covered in it. And then, of course, in the garden, lots of lettuces and greens. I have enough salad for 3 people for a week right now off of what we're growing both inside and outside. I've had a great cilantro year. I've never had a great cilantro year. Here's how I did that. I grew a single cilantro plant. It went to seed. I just let it sit there. I collected some of the seed. The rest of the seed fell. And then the rest of the seed grew. And so every day I'm getting a bunch of cilantro out of the garden area, which makes me super happy. And then the other thing, and this has been something I've been working on for years, I'm having lots of dill right now. And that's because I'm growing it inside. I haven't transplanted it outside yet, but I've finally cracked the dill nut where you get it to germinate. My dill are about that tall, and I've just been harvesting them from the outside, and they keep putting up new leaves. I'll transplant some of that outside because I want it to grow to maturity and give me dill heads for dill pickles. But for years, when it comes time for me to pickle cucumbers, I don't have dill. And so I have to buy dill, or I have to have dried dill from the year before because they're never done at the right time. And what I figured out this year is if I grow it and raise it inside as part of my indoor salad growing adventure, I will have dill that I grew. And that means that instead of spending, $5-10 on dill, which is about how much I end up spending by the end of it all, guess what? I spent like nothing on seeds. I literally spent nothing on these seeds, and I have thousands of seeds that a friend gave me from their dill, which did really well last year. And if I had bought seeds, it would have been $3 for a packet that will give me more dill than I'm going to need for the whole year. And then that would go to seed and I could collect them for free. So I just saved myself about $10 in buying dill. Next segment is Operation Independence. This is where we talk about building local revenue into our lives. And the first one is that my pantry stores have kept me from the stores. Woo! Yeah, I'm super happy about that. The stores are crazy right now, and having that pantry has kept me out of there and kept me from having to make poor choices for things. So that's a huge relief for me, and it's going to be good for my budget. My grocery budget this month is going down because we're not going to the grocery store. In fact, somebody has issued the grocery store challenge. You remember what that is? So like last July, we all agreed, or some of us agreed, to not go to a grocery store. We were allowed to go to farmers markets. And like if you had a herd share and were getting milk, you could do that, but you couldn't go to a traditional grocery store. You were allowed one exemption item. So if your exemption item was coffee or half and half, you were allowed that one thing that you could go to the store for. Otherwise, you were not to buy anything from the store. And it was a test of the pantry that you have, right? And a lot of people participated last year, and we learned some interesting things about what we store. Somebody joked today, "Hey, let's do the grocery store challenge again." And I was like, "Well, you already are, basically." So we might formalize that one. We'll see. The only problem is in April, I have my spring workshop. So I'm going to end up going to the store for some of that. Okay. The other thing is I've been trading eggs for goat milk, and barter is great. That helps me be more independent. That helps the people who have goat milk be more independent. So that's kind of cool. And then I also formalized a coaching trade with somebody that's a win-win for both of us. So this week, like the wins are barter, and I really like barter when you can do a value for value exchange, because if you don't sometimes you just need to sell things for cash. Don't get me wrong. But if you don't have to have it, again, it's like that's just not even on the books, right? How do you even track that? I don't even know. Like it's just, two people doing things for each other. And I really like to build in barter when I can. So that's the report from Operation Independence. Next up, it's the main topic of today's show, taking care of you. 5 ideas to overcome high stress. What do I mean by high stress? You know what? This can mean any kind of high stress. A lot of people are really scared right now, and they were this scared after 9/11. I remember. But some people every day of their life for their job are in a constant state of high stress. Think about how doctors who work at the emergency room, for example, think about how they are, right? So if you're facing high stress because of life changes, like maybe you're navigating a divorce, maybe some people have died in your family, or lost a job, having to get a new one, have to move suddenly. There's all sorts of things that can cause high stress. If you let the stress overtake you, then it's harder to get through the situation to what's on the other side. And the sad thing about times of high stress, or maybe the hard thing to embrace, is that it's good. Wait a minute, why is it good? Well, when you have times of pain, and when you when you overcome the hardship or the stress and you come out the other side, and you will come out the other side if you've done it right, and if you've learned along the way, and if you're back on your feet, you're stronger and you're a better person at the other end of that, right? And so when I see a time of high stress like now, like me having that anxiety attack over the weekend, I'm thinking, okay, self, it's not helpful for you to not get sleep. And it's not helpful for you to fret about things you can't control. Like, what can you do? Right? I know what I can do to alleviate some of the stress. One is I only look at what's going on in the world about one time per day right now. I don't I'm not doing that 24/7 coronavirus dance. I'm looking at the news. I wanna know what's happening legislatively, how many wars we're starting. I wanna, yes, know if what the outbreak's looking like in my local region. But what I'm not doing is hearing every story of every person who gets sick. And it's kind of like that thing where when I was reading Southern Living magazine and my house is just not like that, and my house is never gonna be like that. In fact, I'm not even sure I want my house to be like that anymore. I developed an anxiety about my house that was unfounded. People come to my house because they feel welcome here, right? And that's a good thing, and it doesn't have to be a Southern Living house. Well, that's the same thing with the news. If you expose yourself to the wrong kind of news all day long, especially if what's happening right now is you have all day to do it because 'cause you're home, you become what you expose yourself to. So, one of the ways to deal with the stress is not constantly expose yourself to it if you can avoid it, whether that be in a job, whether it be a news cycle, whether it be, talking to somebody who's venting on you, right, about something that they need to work through. It's not bad to have those talks, but if you have them for too long or with too many people, you end up taking that on, and that's not good for you. And then the next thing is, I started thinking, like, what can I do? I'm worried about money. I'm worried about earning enough. Coffee freaking flatlined in March because of this thing. Now, you would think you would want to order if you're afraid of getting the coronavirus, you would think you'd want to order your coffee from somebody who washes her hands and lives in a holler and doesn't see people. You would think. But there's the other side of that coin. People are looking at their piles of money going, do I want to buy coffee right now? I don't know. So, as coffee goes out in the store, what I expect to happen is to have a few more mail orders. And then when we all get through this and it's back to like, okay, so I was 6 weeks out of income or 4 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever it is. And here's my budget. I think it's going to slow down again. So what can I do? Well, I can take advantage of people wanting to order right now and get those orders out as fast as I can, and I'm doing that, right? So I've just roasted today all of my subscription orders. These are the people who support me every month by subscribing to Coffee of the Month, or they have a different you can subscribe to anything on my site, right? I made sure I went through and looked at got all their orders roasted, and I'm shipping them out tomorrow with a note telling them I did it early to make sure they were taken care of. Because now I have Christmas scale orders coming in the door, and that's great. I'm going to take advantage of this right now and not depend on it. That's the key. So what else can you do if you're at home and you're not earning income? Look at alternative ways to earn income from home. A friend of mine posted on Facebook today. I'm asking her permission to add this to my site, like 20 ideas, or maybe it was 10. It was a lot of ideas on how to earn a little extra income right now from your house. And it's just simple things you can do. Some of them do require leaving your house, like DoorDash and delivery is a big deal right now. I have a friend in Seattle who has a whole sterilization process. DoorDash, you can opt to not open the door. Like they can say, we don't want you to come inside, just leave it at the door and then text us when you're back in the car. So he alcohols himself, goes into the store, gets the stuff, loads it in his car, alcohols himself, drops it off, alcohols everything, goes back to his car, alcohols himself. So, and he's documenting this, and people are paying him extra big tips for that. So, there are things you can do if you're in a situation like I might find myself in soon. And I think sharing these ideas right now is a great idea. And then find trusted advisors to lean on when you're stressed. This could be like Dr. Kaler to give me a balanced perspective of the real threat. Or it can be if you are in a situation where there's been a lot of unexpected death. It might be a pastor or a counselor. That's not bad to find somebody to lean on. Reach out because when you do those things, you're taking control. And so with that, I do want to share 5 ways I work at home to overcome high stress. And the first one is the easiest one, but it's the hardest one to do when you're stressed out, and that's create time for yourself. Create time for yourself to enjoy and encourage life and encourage those around you. If you are with family, have them do the same thing. Schedule it. Schedule it. If you're going to be home for the next week and you're stressed out about it, schedule once a day for an hour where nobody gets to talk to you. Nobody gets to ask you a question. You get to go do what you want. It could be whatever you want. It's time for you. You might want to write in a journal about your thoughts. You might want to go on a walk by yourself, maybe take a bath, read a book. Heck, go kayaking. It's already kayaking season here. Watch a film if there's a movie you want to see, particularly. You even make something. The thing I like to do when I am giving myself time is to have uninterrupted time where I can do something like work in my garden or take a walk with the dogs. Those are the things when I make that time, even when I don't have that time. And by make that time, I mean like a deadline might slip because I just took this hour walk with my dogs, but I'm taking this hour walk with my dogs because I need to release some stress. Another thing I do is swim laps. I swim laps on Sundays, and that is, it's a 3-hour block, but it takes me, I'm in the pool about 45 minutes. It's just a lot of driving. Anyway, I make that time for myself on purpose because I know at the end of it, I'm in a better space. My stress is gone. My body's feeling good because I worked out. It helps me expel toxins from my system by getting the blood pumping. There's just a lot of good that comes out of it. So your thing that you do when you make time for yourself might be different than somebody else's. I think the key is you have to demand it for yourself and empower those around you to do it because they're stressed too. Second thing, do something for somebody who needs help. Do something for somebody that needs help. It's amazing how helping somebody else can relieve the stress because it reminds you what's really important in this world. And a lot of times the things that are causing us stress, while they are stressful, are not all that important really in the long, like bigger scheme of the world, right? 20 years from now, I don't even know if this blip in my life is going to be anything other than a great story to tell my niece's children, right? So there are a lot of things you can do that will help you deal with stress and help you get a better perspective. For example, send somebody a care package if they know you need it. I know a couple people who are pretty tight on their food budget that I mailed food to this week. I did that in part to alleviate my own stress, in part because I acknowledge that they are less stable than I am, and a surprise care package is not a bad thing. Or if you have somebody elderly in your neighborhood, you can drop off food. I read a story the other day about the person who was first infected in Tennessee, and he shared that the best thing that happened out of it is people would write him cards and drop them off and bring them things. And why that was particularly helpful is that he was being just assaulted for being the a-hole that brought coronavirus into Tennessee. Are you the one? Are you the one? Don't treat people like that. People don't do this intentionally. They're not out there licking handrails trying to get sick and then get everybody else sick, right? That's just like bad form. So if you know somebody who is quarantined at home, an encouraging note will really makes a huge difference. Doesn't cost any money. It just costs a little time. Buy from a small business. Right now, some people have said gift certificates at restaurants, they're about to get closed. That will help them a little bit. The way they were closed in Illinois was very sudden. And so restaurants were left with, I heard a story of one that had $10,000 in food they just bought for the week that they can't now sell. So it's a hard moment for them. They kind of said, well, if we would have been given 3 to 5 days notice, we wouldn't have restocked. It would have just been a much better transition. Offer to give a class. I'm going to give some classes or read books to my nieces who are now home for at least 2 and probably 4 weeks. And having a different face in front of you is real easy. The Zoom.us tool is a great way to do that, or FaceTime or Skype. There are just lots of ways to do it. Or if you're technologically inclined, something you can do for somebody else is pour it into their computer and fix a tech problem. We did that this morning for somebody and they loved it. Now their email wasn't working. Now their email is working. So it's amazing how much less stress I have after helping a few people. And I just encourage you to do the same thing. Okay, the third thing is regular exercise. Yeah, that thing where I said go for a walk earlier. Well, there's a reason it's good for you. It gets you away from things, it gives you some space in your own head, but getting your body moving is better than sitting your body on the couch, right? And we all know it, and we all feel like, "Hey, our lives are so hectic." Like, many of us don't have time to work out. Well, now you do. So, it gets you away from the COVID chatter, it gets you away from stress. Making that time again is huge, and moving your body helps you have a stronger body and be healthier, and all of those things are good payoffs, and when your body's healthier, your stress reaction is easier to control. Something I've learned the hard way. Ask me how I know. I guess I haven't shared this, but when I was in my early 30s, I had a lot of stress. I had a different cycle of super stressful stuff happening, and I decided to start running. And I hadn't worked out in 10-ish plus years. Wow, that's bad. And, I've done things like go skiing or whatever, but I wasn't doing like a lot of outdoor activities either. So I was pretty much just getting up, going to work, coming home, cooking dinner, sitting on the couch. That was it. Might sing in a band. That takes some energy, but not a lot of energy. And so I decided to start running. And I tried to run and I couldn't. My body was unable to do it. And so then first I had to walk. And then I had to run and pause, and run and pause, and run and pause. And then next thing I knew, I was able to run. And eventually I ran a 5K. And that is something that I learned from. I have never let myself get that out of shape again. I have let myself get out of shape, but not out of that out of shape again, because I realized, if I'd been 60 or 70 and had been doing this my whole life, not realized when I was 30 that, oh, maybe I need to get off my butt and do something, I would have been in a much worse shape. I probably would have, not been able to do what I did, because it only took me about 6 months. And my mom noticed because we went on a walk. She said, "Wow, you're much better at being able to go on walks with me than you used to be." And I was like, "Yeah, because I started exercising." So don't underestimate making time for that. That's another one where, like, come hell or high water, I work out twice a week, and I'm active every day, but I make sure I do like a good one twice a week. And if it's not Sunday and Wednesday, it's Sunday and Thursday. If it's not Sunday and Thursday, it's Monday and Thursday. I do something. And if I have to stay in the holler for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be going back to running and hiking, I guess, because there's no pool here for laps and CrossFit's awful far from here. Okay. The next idea number 4, is give yourself time to be scared or to mourn, and then work to find ways to process it and let it go. And this is something Jenny calls the pity party, then move on. Sometimes it's not that easy. Like, I lost my uncle. I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. He was old. It was his time in that, like in the bigger picture perspective. I'm okay with it. I missed his funeral. I was a little sad about that, but I'm glad to have known him, and I'm glad to have had time with him. I'm sad he's gone. He is the last of my grandmother's generation. There is the wife of one of the Middlesworths left. And that whole generation was responsible for teaching me the basic values I have that I share with you. They were independent. They were self-empowering. They didn't let excuses get in the way of doing what needed to be done. They took care of the things they needed to take care of. They kept the family together even when they moved far away. Once a year, we have a family reunion. And by family reunion, I mean times that I've been, because I can't go every year. I don't go every year because I don't choose to build it into my budget. Anyway, 80 people, 50 people, that's about the range we have there. And It's not one of those families where you have a lot of infighting. There are little arguments that happen just like everything else, but when I hear about some of the drama in other people's families, I just feel for them because while irritations happen, we come from a place of forgiveness in that family, and I think all of those things about my family have come from the generation that the last one just died. And I'm hoping that they instilled it as well enough in the rest of us that we keep that tradition going in our family, because the more people who empower others and the more people who take care of what they need to take care of and teach other people that they can, the better off our whole world will be. And, it's also quite a support system to have, because I know no matter what happens, if I have to fall back on my family, I can talk to them. And while they do expect me to solve my own problems, they're there to support me while I do. And that's not everybody has that. And I'm sorry about that. That's why sometimes you have to build your new family rather than depend on the one you're related to. Um, but if you give your self time to be scared about this, that's fine. If you're always scared about this, it's not fine. We had a tornado rip through Cookeville and kill 17 people. The head count's now at 17. They found another body, by the way, that was not related, or two, um, that the tornado decided to bring up out of the earth. Uh, but there are people right now who are having kind of a PTSD reaction, so they're really scared every time storms come through. But there are two kinds of reactions I'm seeing. One, there's a person who every time they do something that is would be considered normal, they feel guilty about it rather than thankful. And, doing that for a little while, I can understand, but at some point you have to give yourself time to feel guilty about that. And then the next one be, "You know what? I'm thankful. Thank you for not taking me and leaving me in a situation where I can cook my meal and share it if I need to and help other people," right? So, give yourself time to be scared, or give yourself time to mourn a death, or death of a relationship, or loss of a job, and then work to let it go and ask yourself, "But what can I do? What can I do to work through this? Do I need to write down my thoughts? Do I need to write the story of this person's life? Do I need to reach out and help somebody? What can I do to let it go? And what can I do to move things forward?" Then my final strategy, and this is one that if you are at home and you're my Pacific Northwest listeners, you've got lots of time to do this one, and that is learn something new. One of the things way back when I realized that if I didn't change my life, I was gonna end up with a heart condition in the wrong place and dead early in debt, and decided to change. One of the first things I did was sign up for a winemaking class I did not have time for. I did not. I learned something new, and here's why. I needed to shock myself out of that mental thing that happens where you just rotate and you rotate and you rotate, right? And so I did, and I signed up for the wine class, and A, I made friends that were not in the field I was working in, and B, I learned a new skill. And right now, with YouTube at our fingertips and all of these things going on, you can learn a new skill. You can sign up for that Facebook ad webinar and learn how to run a Facebook ad campaign, or you can go back and watch the one about how to be seen online, or you can sign up for a class that somebody's got going. There are lots of people offering digital content right now for free. I think Stanford has a bunch of college classes that you can take. So learning something new helps you work through stress. In one part, because you're like engaging this part of your brain that you don't usually use. And when you're in stress, you're like over here stuck in your little mired area. Learning something new takes you out of that and gives you a new perspective. So those are my 5 ideas for dealing with stress. The first one is create time for yourself and use it well, and do it on a regular schedule. 2, do something for somebody that needs help that you can help them with. 3, regular exercise. 4, give yourself time to be scared or hurt or upset or whatever it is, to deal with the negative and then figure out how to let it go. And then number 5, learn something new, because you own your response, right? You own your response to the situation right now and every situation that you will encounter in your lifetime or have encountered in your lifetime. And there are outside forces on the CV thing that are pushing really hard to make you scared. They're showing you all the bad stuff. They're showing you the empty shelves. And They want to make you panic. They want you to be scared. They want you to have the anxiety attack I had this weekend, right? And that's because the next thing that happens is there's going to be a solution put into place to fix your fear, to fix this situation. And any solution is better than no solution when you're scared. That's how we get controlled. And that's not good. This could lead to many years of more inhibitions on our freedoms, guys. Abuses of people's individual rights, and an even less stable medical system than the one we have that we're all complaining about right now. And if you think about it for a minute, the current regulatory environment, right, that was built over 20, 30 years by both parties, has resulted in how our medical system is now. They call it a free market medical system. It's not. It's highly, highly regulated, and it's left it completely unable to be nimble in a situation where it needs to be nimble in order to react to this or any other infestation, for lack of a better word. In order to be able to react to that well, it requires some amount of nimbleness. We had that in 1918, actually, but now our system is so bogged down with regulatory problems that it cannot be nimble. And I read a story over the weekend about a clinic in Seattle area, I believe, that is set up to research H1N1. And when the first case of coronavirus was discovered, the head of it said, "Hey, we'll switch over to doing research on this to help us react to this and take appropriate action." And in order to do that, the FDA had to say yes. In order for the FDA to say yes, they had to pass certain regulatory things to switch from H1N1 to coronavirus, even though they can use the same laboratory process to work on this. And that was going to take months. You know what the head of that thing did? After about 2 weeks, she started doing it anyway. So I'm hoping that doesn't blow back on her. But think about that. Our medical system, Medicaid, Medicare, have set policies that make the FDA not approve that needs to be done in a situation in a nimble way. We can't do it because of the regulatory system. How does that even make sense? Okay, so next, when you bring this up for discussion, people get mad, by the way. I was called an interesting word today. But people get mad because they're scared and they want to opt for something rather than nothing. And something like expanding Medicaid and Medicare so that the government can fix this is what they want to do. And so if you're like, yeah, but that's what's stopping us from moving ahead, they're like, but we need more of it. Doesn't make any sense. And when you get into that conversation, it doesn't make a lot of sense to continue having it, right? All the time, we hear stories of people getting ill, stories out of Italy. We're freaking out, conspiracy theories, all of that stuff. Turn it off. Today, I encourage you, if you are worried about the current coronavirus issue, about losing income, or sad about some recent losses you've had, and there's one of you I'm thinking about right now, and I think you know who you are because you shared it this morning on social media, take some time for yourself. Find a way to let that stress go. You will find yourself better able to move forward if you do that, because you're going to go into the unknown. You'll find yourself better able to help others, even if it's your own kids dealing with mourning, right? And to navigate what comes next, because none of us ever really know what comes next. Right now, we're all aware that we don't know what comes next, and it's scary. But yesterday, last month, and last year, we also had no idea what's coming next. We just don't. So don't forget, if you're stuck at home and want to learn how to create that Facebook campaign, sign up for the webinar. I put the link in the show notes, and do expect additional stuff. As I find stuff, I'm going to share it with you coming out of Living Free in Tennessee. And if there's something you want me to cover besides 5 plants you can use for toilet paper, Ken, let me know. You can email me, Nicole at livingfreeintennessee.com. With that, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing, you can get your coffee delivered to your door by a single person in a holler that's not seeing other people. Yeah. Actually, I won't deliver it. If I were to get sick, I would stop deliveries, by the way, or if anybody around me does. But right now, that's not happening. So you can get your coffee over at hollerroast.com, or you can become a member by going to livingfreeintennessee.com, clicking on membership and signing up. One last reminder, MeWe. Tomorrow morning, 7:30 to 8 a.m., live chat on MeWe. Live chat has been lively, and I expect it to get livelier in the next few weeks. So just go to MeWe.com, look for Living Free in Tennessee, answer a couple of questions. And if you do not have a pornographic profile picture, which I just had one asked to come in who apparently does, I'm sorry. That's not what we do in the group. Anyway, you will be granted access to the group, and then you can join our live chat. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. 2 live feeds without having to stop once. Woo! I don't know. One of these times you guys will see me talk myself into a chat and not getting distracted. So I think eventually I'll be able to do this and respond to your chats. If you guys think a live Q&A would be kind of fun, we can do that. I'm trying to get Amy Dingman on just about some homeschooling stuff this week, but we're coordinating back and forth on schedules and also topics. So if that happens, I will actually pre-schedule it. It won't just be like a random I popped up and I'm recording my podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, though.